lesson for social studies today. My name is Teacher Duncan Gwadima, and I want to welcome all the grade 8 students who are watching us live so that we can follow our lesson for today. Remember, you can follow our live lesson on KUTV, YouTube, and also Facebook at KUTV. Prepare your book, prepare your pen, and also make sure you sit in an environment that is away from any disturbance. Welcome so much. And in today's lesson, we are going to cover the fourth strand of grade 8 work. The fourth strand of grade 8 work is natural and historic built environment. So welcome. This is social studies. Social studies for grade 8, and today we are going to cover natural. We are going to cover natural and historic built environment. Natural and historic built environment. For those who are joining us, this is grade 8 social studies, and we are going to look at natural and historic built environment in our lesson for today. Now, in grade 7, you covered natural and built historic environment, and also in grade 8 we are going to look at what we mean by natural and historic built environment. This is what we'll be looking at in today's lesson. Now, to begin with, when you started natural and historic built environment, we are going to look at one, map reading. And remember, in today's lesson, we are not going to cover the map reading, the sketch map reading. We are going to look at the deep meaning of map reading and map interpretation. Map reading and map interpretation. Now, what is a map? On your screen, there is a number that is following there. You can use your, you can give us your answer. What is a map? A map is a representation of the earth. It is a representation of the earth, or an area of the earth on a piece of paper. And remember, when we are drawing, or when we are talking about this map, we are not talking about the real map. We are not talking about the real. We are not talking about the real map. We are talking about a map that we are representing it on a piece of paper. So a map is a representation of an area that is drawn to scale. And this map is showing various features. And some of these features we have roads, we have rivers, we have hills, and other landmarks. So when we are talking about a map, it is just a representation of the earth on a piece of paper, and can still be on a flat surface. And we have said that these features that are represented on a map, they include one, roads, they include two, we have rivers, we have buildings, we have hills. So these are features that are represented on a map. After you have defined what a map is, we go to map reading. Map reading and map interpretation. Map reading and map interpretation. What do we mean by the term map interpretation? Map reading and map interpretation, it means analyzing and understanding the symbols that are found on a map. When we are reading and analyzing the symbols that are found on a map, what we are basically doing is map interpretation. So map interpretation, it refers to analyzing and interpreting the symbols on a map. Then, after you have interpreted a map, remember, interpreting means you are analyzing the symbols on a map. When you're doing analysis of symbols on a map, these symbols are represented in an area called the key. You can only interpret the symbols on a map by looking at the key. Now, that takes us to the elements of a map. What are the elements of a map? For a good map, for us to call this a good map, there are 5 elements of a map that we are going to look at. Plus, and students who are watching us, using the number that is on your screen, what are some of the elements of a map do you know? What are some of the elements of a map do you know? Use the number that is on your screen to give us your answer. Now, there are 5 elements of a map. These elements are 1, title, 2, scale, 3, key, 4, compass, and lastly, frame. These are the 5 elements of a map that we have as we study map reading and map interpretation. Now, we want to look at a sample of a map on our screen, the map of Kenya. We are going to study that map and see, does it have all the elements of a good map? We start with the title. As you see on the screen, that map has got the title. And the title of that map is Map of Kenya. It is Map of Kenya. Number 2, does it have frame? Is it enclosed in a frame? Yes, the map is enclosed in a frame, and you can see on your screen. And then the third element of a map that is on that screen that you can see is the key. We have the key on your right hand side. On the southwestern part, you will see the southwest. There is a key there, and you can see the elements and the symbols that have been used in that key. Then we have the compass direction. The compass direction is still there on the northwestern part. There is a compass direction on that key. Then lastly, look at if we have the scale as the last element of a map. Yes, we have the scale. And if you look at that map clearly, the map of Kenya that you can see, it has got all the 5 elements of a map. It has got all the 5 elements of a map. And we have seen all these elements. We know we'll be describing them as we move. We will be seeing what is the title, key, compass, frame, and other elements of a map that we'll be looking at. Now, as we continue, on a map, you will always find that if this is the map itself, for example, a sketch of a map, this is the frame, and this is a map, for example, you will find out that there are some symbols, or there is another information that is not enclosed inside the frame. There is information you will find on any map, and that information is not enclosed. It is not found inside the map, inside the frame. This information is referred to as marginal information. Marginal information. Marginal information. Now, what is marginal information? Marginal information, it refers to any information that is not found inside the map, that is not enclosed inside the map. And we'll be looking at what are these types of marginal information. It is an additional information. Additional information. Additional information, this is information that is not found inside. It is found at the margin of a map. As you can see on the screen, you will find out that there is the map itself, then there is another added information outside that map. The information is always given on the margin of the map sheet. What you can see on the screen is called the map sheet. And any information that is found outside, it is called the marginal information. As you can still look at it, when you look at that map, you will find out that there is information that is not enclosed inside that map. And it has got all the 5 elements of a map. It has got all the 5 elements of a map. It has the title, it has got the key, the frame, it has got also the compass and the scale. So any added information that is found on the map is called marginal information. And this information is always given on the margin of the map sheet. We'll be looking at what are these type of the marginal information that you can see on the map that we have just looked at it on our screen. Let us now look at marginal information. What can you be able to see? Marginal information. Marginal information. The first marginal information, that you can see on that screen is the title. The title is the marginal information. Why? Because it is written outside the map. It is not enclosed inside the map. And for our case here, it is Taita Hills. Taita Hills. The Taita Hills is our title. And the title itself is not enclosed inside the map. So title becomes our marginal information. So title, it is the name or heading of a particular area. Title is just the heading. It's just the heading or name of a particular area. And it is always written at the top of the map. That one we are aware. Then number 2, we have the scale. The scale is also a marginal information because it is not written inside the map. The scale is usually written either here, it can be written here, this is the scale. It is not written inside the map. It is not written inside the map. So title, a scale, becomes our marginal information because it is not written inside the map. The third one is called the map series. Map series refers to a collection of maps together. Maps that are collected together, they make up what you call map series. And we want to look at what is map series in our case here. Map series, it is the breakdown of the information into a sequence of maps. Each providing a specific information about a particular aspect of the area. So a map series refers to a collection of related maps that cover a specific geographical area. That specific geographical area is what we call map series. Another one is called the grid reference. Grid reference, this refers to signs and symbols that have been used on a map. There are sometimes you'll find signs and symbols. Signs, like if this is a sign, this is a symbol, and then this is a sign. This is a sign. This is also a sign. This is also a sign. So these are signs, and this is a symbol. So these symbols and signs on a map are not found inside. They are found on the key. They are referred to as grid reference system. Grid reference system. So our third, number 3 is called grid reference system. We have said grid reference system. This refers to signs and symbols that are found on the map. The third marginal information is called latitudes. Latitudes are horizontal imaginary lines drawn on a map to show how far north is from south, or how far north or south is from one point to another. So latitudes. So I don't know if my director can put the map on the screen so that we are able to see the map of Taita Hills, the one that we have just looked at, so that we are able to see what are latitudes and what are longitudes on a map. Thank you. So as you can see on the screen, as you can see that latitudes, these are horizontal imaginary lines drawn on a map to show how far north or south a place is from the equator. From the equator, how far is it from the equator? And as you can see from your screen, the map that we have 30 on our left hand side and right hand side. We have 30 and 30, meaning it runs from the other side to the other side, 30 to 31, like that. So how far an area is from the equator is what we call latitudes. Let me just draw for you here so that you are able to see. If this is the map, and we have the equator here, we have the equator there, how far this distance, just a minute, how far this distance, I will use figures. This is 10, 20, this is 10, 20. Now, if this is the equator, how far is this distance from the equator? So latitudes refers to the imaginals that shows us how far a place is from either from the north, from the equator going to the north, or from the equator going to the south. So latitudes, in this case, these are imaginary lines that shows us how far a place is from north or from south. Then we have longitudes. Now, longitudes, in this case, these are imaginary lines that tells us, or they show us, they are vertical imaginary lines drawn on a map showing how far a place is from the east or west from the Greenwich meridian. Now in this case, if we have the map here, for example, this is the Greenwich meridian, and this side is the eastern side. So how far this place is, this is 10, for example, 20. This is 10, 20. How far this place is from the Greenwich meridian going to the west, and how far this place is from the Greenwich meridian going to the east. These are called latitudes. So latitudes are vertically imaginary lines that tells us how far the place is from the eastern side. Another imaginary line, imaginary information is called the publisher. And I know we are going to have the display on the screen. The publisher refers to the person who has published the map. I want us to look at, our director is putting it on the screen so that you are able to see the map of Taita Hills, the one that you have just looked at. If you look at the map of Taita Hills, on your left hand side, we can see the publisher, published by Survey of Kenya 1991, down on your left hand side. So publisher is the person or the company that published the map. For instance, in this case, this map was published by Survey of Kenya. As we are still looking at that, still, we have what we call copyright. Copyright is also a symbol. We want to look at it. It is also imaginary information denoted by a C. Copyright is denoted by a C. And on our screen, copyright, it is a law that protects the owners of published works from other persons, meaning you cannot copy another person's work. In this case, I think it is not clear. It is not clear there. It is not clear on the map that we have. Then we have what we call the sheet index number. The sheet index number if you look at our map, the sheet index number is found on the top right hand side. I know it is going to be displayed in a few minutes there. If you look at the map of Taita Hills, the sheet index number is found on the right hand side. Students, using the number that you can see on the screen, what is the sheet index number of the map of Taita Hills that you can see on the screen? What is the sheet index number of the map of Taita Hills? Use the number that is on the screen to give us your correct answer. And then lastly, we have what we call edition number. Edition number. What is edition number? Edition number, this shows the year in which the map was published. The year the map was published. In this case, look at the map of Taita Hills that we have. It is still the sheet index number and the edition number. They are always at the top right hand side corner of the map, and they are always either in a circle, in a rectangular way, always at the right hand. And you can see there we have the edition, we have the sheet number, and we have the sheet series. So all of them, the sheet series, the edition are on the same page or the same number. Now, as we continue, remember, we are looking at map reading and map work. And as you can see from the screen that we have, that is a different map that we will be using in grade 8. And it is important for you to learn these types of maps. So that takes us to another question. What are the types of maps do you know? Use the number that is on the screen to give us your correct answer. What are some of the types of maps do you know? As we continue, because now we are looking at map reading and map work, and the marginal information that I have just given is not found in all maps. It is only found in some maps. It is found in some maps. And I want us to look at types of maps. Types of maps that we have. Types of maps. There are 3 types of maps. There are 3 types of maps, and the first map is called an atlas map. Number 2, a sketch map. And number 3, topographical map. Topographical map. These are the 3 types of maps that we have in social studies. Now, an atlas map is different from a topographical map. An atlas map is different from a sketch map, different from a topographical map. So it is important for you as a student and as a learner to understand that when we are talking about maps, which map are we talking about? For instance, the map that we are using here is Taita Hills. And the map of Taita Hills lies under a topographical map. So, an atlas map, these are maps that describe a surface feature that include both natural and human features. But I want us to look at topographical maps because that is what we are interested in, the map of Taita Hills. What is a topographical map? Using the diagram, the image of Taita Hills, these are maps that are drawn on scale and they give information. This information can be of natural features, natural stroke physical features, and other information on the map. So a topographical map is a representation of the Earth's physical features and man-made features. And these details, they are always presented on a key. So these features include, can be rivers, can be roads, railways, mountains, among other features, other physical features. Now, if we go back to the map of Taita Hills, you will find out that there are figures that you will be able to observe keenly and see. We have rivers, we have roads, we have railways, we have mountains, and we also have vegetation. Using the key that is there, you are able to know that this is a river, this is a dry weather road, and etc. and etc. So that is an example of a topographical map. And we have said these are map representation of the Earth's physical features and also man-made features. So these features can either be a man-made or human-made features. As we continue, I want us to look at something else after looking at the types of maps that we are dealing with. And we said, remember we are still talking about marginal information. Features that are found outside the map are referred to as marginal information. information given outside. And we named some of them. We have looked at some of them. And then I want us to look at the scale. Types of scales. Types of scales. Now, learners, what is a scale? You can use the number that is on the screen to give us your correct answer. What is a scale? Use the number that is on the screen to give us your correct answer. Now, a scale is a ratio of a distance on the map corresponding to that distance on the ground. And the scale helps us to understand the relationship on the map and the relationship on the physical world. Remember, you can never draw the world. There is no place where you can draw the whole world in one place and it fits there. So what we use is the scale. So a scale, it is just a ratio of distance on the map corresponding to that distance on the ground. Meaning, we are only representing. We cannot be able to draw. We are only representing this. Now, what are some of the scales do you know? There are 3 types of scales. The first one, we have statement scale. Number 2, we have representative scale. And number 3, we have linear scale. Linear scale. Now, statement scale is written in description. This one we just write in description. For example, 1 centimeter represents 10,000 meters or kilometers. So a statement scale is a description. It just describes using words. Whereas ratio scale is expressed in relationship between the distance on the map or on the and the distance on the actual ground. It is also referred to as a fraction or ratio scale. Fraction or ratio scale. We call it ratio scale because we use ratio form. Then linear is a graphic representing the relationship between the distance on the map and the distance on the ground. And also linear scale, it is usually shown as a bar or line with markings to indicate the distance on the map and the actual distance on the ground. I want us to look at how do they look like, the figures of statement scale and ratio scale. Now, we are going to be projected on the screen. The statement scale, as you can see on the screen, just a minute, is 1 centimeter represents 10 kilometers. As you can see, just a minute before our director projects for us. Good. As you can see on the screen, statement scale is 1 centimeter represents 10 kilometers. Representative scale, which is also known as ratio scale, it is also there. 1 is to 50,000. Then linear scale is used to represent, it is in a form of a line bar. So those are types of scales that we have in social studies that we use when we are studying. Now, how do we use these scales? In other words, what are the uses of these scales? Or what is the use of scale? Number 1, scale is used to measure the distance on maps, and it is used also to compare them to actual distance. So one of the uses of scale is to compare distance. Number 2, they are used to determine the level of details that a map can display. How much can this map display? What will we use is the scale. Scales enables us to draw a map expressing the actual distance on a small flat surface. As I said earlier, you cannot draw the map on a full paper, the whole world. What you use is what we call the scale. So that scale is the one that will help us to reduce the bigger surface into a small flat surface. And then lastly, scales, they can be used to determine the shortest route to follow when navigating. When you want to follow or you want to navigate, the scale is going to help us to determine which is the shortest route can you be able to follow. I want our learners and our students to note that, number one, scales used on maps can be representative, linear, or statement. And we have said this. So for you to study, make sure you are able to look at that. Is it a representative, a linear, or a statement scale? Number two, I want you to note that the scales are important because they enable us to find the distance on the ground. So for us to find the distance on the ground, we use the scale. And they also help us to determine details presented by a map. This is determined by the size of maps. For us, if we want to look at the size of the map, we are going to use the scale. The sizes of maps determined by scale can be either small, medium, or large. The size of maps determined by a scale can either be small, can be medium, can be also large. A large map, a small map is represented with small units. Medium scale is also represented by a certain range. Then large, the largest ones are represented by huge number of digits. Now, after we have understood these features on a map, how do we represent them on a map? After we have seen these physical features on the key, these symbols, how are they represented on the key? That takes us to methods of representing relief on a topographical map. Methods of representing relief on a topographical map. So the first question we need to ask ourselves is, what is relief? What is relief? Use the number that you can see on the screen. What is relief? Use the number that you can see on the screen to give us your correct answer. What is relief? Relief refers to the nature of land. The land can either be sloping or rising or flat. So relief, it means the appearance of the land, the nature of the land. A location's relief is the difference between the highest and the lowest elevations. The Earth's surface, and when talking about the height above the sea level, we are talking about elevation. So as we continue, we'll be looking at what are some of the elevations do we have. On topographical maps, some features can be represented using some of the methods that we are going to look at now. The methods used to represent relief now are: 1, contour lines. Number 2, we have contour lines. Number 2, we have spot heights. Spot heights, trigonometric, and the last one is called layer tinting. So as you can see on the screen, those are methods of representing relief. The first one is contour lines. Contour lines, if you are very keen to observe our map of Taita Hills, you could see that we have some lines that form a circle. They form circles. Those lines are called contour lines. These are lines on a map that connect points of equal elevation. They represent the shape and the steepness of the land. As you can see on the screen, they are in form of circles. Trigonometric stations, these are marked points on the map. Remember when we were talking about symbols and the signs. Trigonometric stations, these are points on the map where accurate measures can be made to determine elevation. We said elevation refers to an area of height above the sea level. Then the spot heights, don't confuse the spot heights and the contour lines. The contour lines are closely packed together, but if you look at the spot heights, they are much spaced. Spot heights are marked points on the map that show the exact elevation. The exact elevation, we use the spot heights, but if we want to know the steepness of the land, now we use the contour lines. Then layer tinting. Tinting. It refers to using different colors of shades to represent the different heights. Now, how do we represent vegetation on topographical map? Vegetation on topographical map can also be represented using different methods. You can use symbols, you can use color, you can also use text label. So coloring, different colors can be used to represent types of vegetation. We can still use symbols to represent these vegetations, and also you can still text labels with the text explaining the type of vegetation. How do we interpret physical features? I know our time is almost up, but we are moving on. How do we interpret physical features on a map? On a map, and we will be ending there. On a map, we also need to interpret physical features. What are some of these physical features? 1, we have mountains. 2, we have hills. 3, we have plateaus. 4, we have plains, and so on and so forth. So how do we interpret physical features on a topographical map? On a topographical map, physical features on a topographical map. How do we represent physical features on a topographical map? Now, topographical features have numerous physical features. Topographical features have got different and very numerous physical features indicated on them and represented differently. The relief features are widely shown by means of contours. And what are contours? Contours on a map, they occupy patterns in respect to the shape of the landforms. So, for us to represent physical features, we will use what we call contours. So contours are the ones we use to represent relief. We use contours. And also, the relief on topographical maps can also be used using different lines. You can use different lines. You can use different lines. And these lines are arranged differently depending on the type of relief being represented. And we are going to look at some of these features used to represent relief on a map. Now, I want us to look at the methods that are on your screen. We'll be looking at them now. We see how do they look like, if they are lines, if they are contours, how do they look, or how do they appear. If you look at our screen, we have a feature and descriptions. And the first one are lines showing a hill. Lines showing a hill. We said lines showing a hill are represented by circles, either moving towards the center or upwards. As you can see on the screen, the first one, lines showing a hill. So on a topographical map, when we talk about using lines, as I've said, lines showing a hill, they are represented using concentric circles moving towards the center. The second one, lines showing a ridge. Lines showing a ridge. Lines showing a ridge. Lines showing a ridge are represented by contour lines that form sloping lines of high ground. If you look at the lines on the screen, you will find out that the contour lines form a ridge tend to be U-shaped or V-shaped. As you can see, the line showing a ridge, the first one, it is in form, it looks like a V or a U. Then also, these lines, they point away from a high ground. They point away from a high ground. The next one are lines showing a depression. Lines showing a depression. These lines are known as hachuas. Lines hachuas. Hachuas. These are lines hachuas. They are short lines used to indicate a steep slopes. And thus we have lines representing plains or flat areas on a topographical map are represented by widely spaced contours. Remember, lines showing a hill, the contours are closely packed together, but lines showing plains, they are widely spaced together. They are widely spaced together. Then, lines showing a cliff. Lines showing a cliff, they are lines used to show cliffs. They appear close to each other or across each other. So in lines showing a cliff, it can either they are together or they are crossing each other. And I know you are able to differentiate between the lines of a plains and the lines of a cliff, the lines of a depression, the lines of a ridge, and the lines of a hill. As we said, depression is hachuans. Again, just I give you a summary. Hill, I want to give you a summary. Hill, if you want to know hill or hills, the lines are moving towards the center. Towards the center. And then ridge, The lines are represented by contours that form a sloping line, U or V-shaped. They form a U or a V-shaped. That is a ridge. Then the third one, which is a depression. Depression is, we use what we call hachures. Hachures. And then planes on a map, we use widely spaced contours. Widely spaced contours. And then number 5, we have cliff. They cross each other. They cross each other, or they are closely together. So those are the differences between when we want to represent hills. When we want to represent hills, ridge, depression, plains, or cliff. It is very important for us to study carefully what are they. It is important for you also to know that these methods are very important for you to differentiate as you move, as you go on. I'm happy for the messages that I am receiving, and I'm happy for those who are watching us live, those who are following us on YouTube and on Facebook. I'm happy you are telling me we appreciate the lesson. Others are telling me the lesson is very wonderful, and that is very, very encouraging. So, boys and girls, and those who are watching us, that brings us to the end of our lesson for today. I have been your teacher, Teacher Duncan Gwadima. Teacher Duncan is a resourceful teacher. As a resourceful teacher means he provides teaching notes and learning notes for teachers and for students for all the classes. I also provide online coaching as an e-learning experienced person. So make sure if you have any challenge in any question, you are able to reach us. We also provide topical questions for every topic from the topic that you need and from the class that you want. That brings us to the end of our lesson today. Until next time, I want to say goodbye.